Hello friends, and welcome to Hallowmead. If you're new to my videos, my name is Nina, I make mead, and I like bad puns. We're kicking it off today with an Oktoberfest inspired brew. Today we're making Gouderspice. This is a 14th century Bavarian mead recipe. It's hoppy, it's herbal, it's sweet, and it's so good. The language of the recipe is also so much fun. Warm, clean water so that you can just stand to put the hand in. Boil the wort as long as it takes to walk an acre and back. Add a handful of sage and put in a nutshell-sized amount of yeast. It's all very magical sounding, so I thought it'd be perfect for our video. We've also only ever made 1 gallon at a time. We're making 15. Now before I get into the mead making part, if you're a lover of Bavarian history, you already know that Oktoberfest is not a medieval tradition. Oktoberfest started in 1810, and it was a way to celebrate the marriage of the Crown Prince Ludwig I and Princess Teresa. It started off as a huge horse race, and the public loved it, so they decided to throw the party every year, and it ends on the first Sunday of October. So this weekend, I guess. Why a medieval mead if this is a 19th century tradition? Well, Ludwig I was a huge history nerd. He loved learning about the German Middle Ages. And this is a love that he most likely passed down to his grandson, my favorite Bavarian king, the Swan King Ludwig II. Also known to some people as the Mad King, but I don't really like that title. I don't think it fits. I'll start by giving you the ingredients. For honey, we are using an entire 60-pound pail of Tupelo honey, so about 5 gallons. We're also using 10 gallons of water, about 17 handfuls of sage, which we picked ourselves, 1¼ gallons of fresh hops from the Fat Friar Meadery in Maine, and 2 packets of Saf Ale T58 yeast. The initial gravity came to 1.152. We looked at the original recipe and determined that 5 gallons of honey would make about 17 batches of the Gouderspice. Each batch is a little bit less than a gallon. We had previously determined that walking an acre and back is about 10 minutes, so that's how long we boiled the hops and sage. To make it easy on ourselves, we put the hops and sage in a mesh bag to steep. This is where we start to deviate from the original recipe. We did not boil our honey. Since we're using Tupelo and it has such a coveted flavor, we wanted to maintain its integrity. And with a little effort, it dissolved just fine. We pitched the yeast and we waited. Now, here's where things get kind of spooky. This is too spooky. King Ludwig II was known as the Mad King because his ministers had him diagnosed as certifiably insane, or at the time known as paranoia, because they wanted to depose him from his throne.
Bullshit!
The ministers felt that their jobs were threatened because Ludwig didn't really care about affairs of state.
Can you believe this shit?
Ludwig wanted to divest all of his resources and energy into completing his fairy tale castle, Neuschwanstein.
It's a beautiful castle. Who gives a shit how much it costs? He's the king.
To be fair, he was about 14 million marks in debt, which today is around $400 million.
Let him have the castle. Let him have 2 castles. 3 castles! Wait a minute. 5 castles! But no more. That's where I draw my line. That's excessive.
Neuschwanstein is a cultural treasure, and because of modern-day tourism, that money has been recouped several times over, though I guess they couldn't have predicted that. The final medical report on Ludwig said this: "Suffering from such a disorder, freedom of action can no longer be allowed, and your majesty is declared incapable of ruling, which incapacity will be not only for a year's duration, but for the length of your majesty's life."
Bullshit!
The doctors hadn't even met Ludwig. I mean, one of them did, but like 12 years prior, and he wasn't even there to diagnose him. No justice.
No peace.
No homophobic ass. I think they're a little homophobic, to be honest. Unfortunately, it gets worse, and our fairy tale king does not come out of this with a happy ending. After the psychological report came out, a government commission came to Ludwig's castle to take him into custody. Luckily, a loyal servant of Ludwig's was able to warn him and he was able to bring the local police there to protect his castle. This gave him a little bit of time to figure out a plan. People close to Ludwig told him to flee to Munich to try and win the hearts of the people and change his fate. But by the time he decided to escape, it was too late. A second commission arrived a little after midnight and captured him, bringing him to a carriage that held one of the doctors that had diagnosed him. This man was Dr. Gooden, and together they left for the Burg Castle near Munich. I guess Dr. Gooden intended to help him. You know, so helpful.
Gooden? Sounds like a bad to me.
Yeah. So, after dinner on June 13th around 6 p.m., Ludwig and Dr. Gooden went on a walk around the lake. When they didn't arrive at their expected time of 8 p.m., the staff of the castle took to the grounds and searched for them. There was a gale, there was heavy rain, it was a perfect, horrible storm. And then, around 10:30 p.m., Ludwig and Dr. Gooden's bodies were found floating in shallow water in the lake. Some people at the time had claimed that Ludwig committed suicide. Some people say he drowned trying to get to an escape boat. Some say he was shot. Though what happened to Dr. Gooden, and how does he fit into all this?
No doubt about it, they killed him.
Whatever the case may be, Ludwig II's legacy lives on, despite the tragic events that were forced upon him. His love of the medieval, of fantasy, of creating worlds of his own imagination resonates so deeply with a poor little LARPer like myself.
Neuschwanstein was built as a dream. Like, it wasn't made by architects, it was made by an artist. This was pure fantasy in its heightened glory. So Ludwig's like the original LARPer, like in every sense of the term. So his father and grandfather built on these Teutonic castles, but they just restored them. Ludwig built this dream, came true. That's really something else. That's, I think, what inspires all the tourism. And us. And the Gutter Spice. Prost.
Prost. So this mead still has a long way to go. The next step is to bulk age it in some oak barrels. We plan to make a follow-up video on all the meads that we're making. Most likely it'll come out in the spring. But if you really want to see how our Gutter Spice can perform, check out our Gulf Wars vlog video, where we entered it into a historical competition.
This video may or may not be sponsored by Maro's House. Check out this iconic bed and breakfast located in the heart of Fusen. Totally not owned by my aunt at all. Tell him John sent you and he'll give you all the fish you want.
For a price.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you so much for watching.
And we'll see you next week. These are my drinking buddies right now. They came from Fusen.
Save some for me.